Good morning or afternoon, and welcome to today's hardware webinar series. I'm your co-host, product manager Drew Altdorfer, and with me today is the head of technical support here at Phase One, global technical support, Ulf Logan. Yeah. Ulf, if you would, could you introduce yourself to the fine people of the internet?
The fine people of the internet. Ulf is my name, and I've been with Phase One for close on 20, 15 years. I've been here plus. Stuff like that,
yeah.
And in various positions, but for the last many years, responsible for technical support, both on the Phase One brand and also for the Mamiya Leaf brand.
And also for Capture One.
Capture One is, of course, under the Phase One brand, yeah.
Media Pro.
Camera backs, cameras.
Yeah, so it's safe to say that you cover pretty much everything photographic
within this company.
Your team is the wealth of knowledge, and your team consists of
people around the world. Actually, we have staff here in Copenhagen, Denmark, in New York, Cologne, Germany, Tel Aviv, Israel, Hong Kong, Guangzhou, China, and Tokyo. And we are one collaborative team, you could say.
That's quite a few people. So the reason I have Ulf here today, and the reason we have this huge assortment of cameras on the table, is we wanted to talk just about medium format in general. All the options with medium format, the advantages of medium format, and some of the technical aspects of medium format. So that's why Ulf's here to give us the inside technical knowledge, the no-nonsense angle on all this information. So I figured we would start at the beginning, which is always a good place to start. Really, what medium format today is built off of is camera systems that were designed in the 1950s.
Indeed. A typical example that comes around is, of course, the Hasselblad 1600, which later became the 500 series.
Right.
Now, today referred to as the Hasselblad V series. Which we actually have a sample of here.
Yeah,
it's a 501.
And I have this beautiful blow apart of that very camera.
Indeed.
So the modular system is really what medium format today, digital medium format, is built off of, with that heritage from the 50s. So we have the Hasselblad V series, and that is a 50, 60-year-old camera. That particular one may be a bit newer.
No, this is a little bit newer, but the fundamental design, you can say, comes back from late 40s, early 50s,
right.
Where you have camera, the body, lens, cassette,
right.
Film cassette originally.
And so pretty much everything that we have on this table, save for one very old relic, this old Minolta twin lens reflex, all of these follow that same principle. Camera body, lens, and capture element, be it a film back or a digital back.
Yeah. And that is really where the digital revolution also started in the medium format.
So we're kind of going to go over, a lot of the aspects of medium format in general, with a lot of these as examples for the talking points of, the main advantages. So we have Hasselblad in the late 40s, early 50s with the V series, Bronica in the 50s, Mamiya in the 60s, and Contax, which we have here, in the 90s. So this was really the last dedicated film medium format camera system.
To a certain degree.
Yeah.
After that came, of course, the Hasselblad H around 2002, which was designed kind of as a hybrid.
Right.
And the same thing applies to the Mamiya 645 AF, the original one, which was not intended for digital. But some manufacturers, including Phase One, started to make adaptations to it. And then they later came out with the AFD, which introduced a digital interface. Previous to that, and including the Contax, it is a film cassette interface,
right,
which we have worked our way around to make it work.
Right, because
it was never intended for it. But
so with all these cameras on the table, it's safe to say that we still produce and support digital backs that fit for the majority of them.
Absolutely.
So what are the fittings of the digital backs that we currently produce and support?
There's four major ones. It is, of course, the Hasselblad V interface for the 500 series cameras. There's the Hasselblad H interface. The Contax interface exists to a certain degree. But of course, our own interface,
Right.
Which is built upon the original Mamiya 645 interface, but heavily developed
Right.
into the digital world.
2016.
Exactly. It's far from what the original interface was.
Right. And so all of this, modularity and stuff, it's safe to say you're busy supporting all of these different camera systems.
Indeed.
And one of the benefits, not just of, having digital backs that can fit on multiple different cameras, but having the modularity of having maybe 2 cameras on set. Or having a very different array of lenses. The V series or the XF supports Pentacon lenses, old Mamiya legacy lenses, current Schneider Kruschneck Phase 1 lenses.
Yeah. For that matter, Hasselblad V lenses.
And Hasselblad V lenses.
You can take a straight up lens here, small adapter to it, and then put it straight on the body. And hence the body has a shutter. So
right.
That's not an issue. You don't have to crank anything or anything like that. You set the aperture on the lens, shutter speed on the body, off you go.
Away you go.
And also you have, of course, then also support of using the autofocus sensor as a focus assist.
Right. For manual lens.
For manual focusing. Right. Yeah.
Just like, when you have the waist level on there, you have the little indicators that tell you when you're in focus. The same thing works with the manual lens.
Yeah.
So for all of the aging clientele, that's a benefit, or people like me that are blind.
Yeah, exactly. Or just for the fact that it just expands the possibilities of what lenses you can use.
Right. So all of those options and everything, it all comes back to a modular system that was built in the 50s, right? So it's pretty impressive that this is the platform that we're building off of, and it brings all of this technology into 2016.
Yeah, and the fact that you can use very, very old lenses, that some of them are fantastic.
And they're very old, and they're very some of them are very inexpensive, and they're very readily available.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Medium format isn't a format that takes thousands of dollars and a mortgage to get into. It's something that you can pick up on eBay or a used camera and just get into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Rent it's all back, about it. Yeah, exactly. Practice with film.
Yeah, and as I said, the modularity is another aspect of it, because a lot of the heavy investment you do is you can do it cheaper, you can do it more expensive with the newest LS lenses, and having a backup body or whatever it is on set. It allows you to instead of having a whole array of cameras, you might have a single part.
Right.
You can replace.
And maybe it's having a backup body, it's having a different lens for a very specific thing. You have a very rare old Mamiya lens that you want to use for a portrait, but the rest of the shoot you need that to autofocus for high fashion stuff like that. So it gives you that creative freedom in addition to all of the technical advantages. But there's also the element of flexibility. So we have here, this is the XF camera system.
Yep.
And then there's the Mamiya RZ Pro 2.
Yep.
Is it a Pro 2D? It is a Pro 2D.
Pro 2D, yep.
And then there's the 4x5.
Yep.
So the versatility of all of this modularity, of course, it gives you creative freedom for all of your artistic needs, but it also gives you the right tool for the right job.
Exactly. For example, the Pro 2D, which we have here, let's see how good you guys can see it. Right now there's a digital back on it. I'm going to take that off. And, here's my XF body. I can just pop off my back. And, God forbid I will actually drop something.
On a live
but there we go. There we go. So now I made my Pro 2D. I have my back. Right. And I just have a different solution for different needs or different style or whatever I'm trying to get out.
And again, this might be, you might want the autofocus for this on a fashion set.
Yeah.
But then you want to do a very nice portrait with a very, very beautiful 6:7 format lens.
Yeah.
And you can set it up with this. And then, of course, instead of, holding this camera on
that side,
you can
simply rotate the back.
Right.
For a portrait shot versus a landscape shot.
So the right tool for the right job, and this gets deeper and deeper, the right tool for the right job, and how medium format really helps to illustrate all of that. It emphasizes that versatility. So aside from our products, the Mamiya RZ Pro 2D and the XF and the old DF Plus or AF.
You just muted yourself.
I did not mute myself.
No? Yeah.
Sorry, we're having technical difficulties.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
David Grover, who's in our room, our moderator, consummate professional, making sure we don't make any mistakes.
It's good.
So as I was saying, the right tool for the right job. This goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So we have here on the table, we have plenty of cameras that people are familiar with: the Hasselblad V, the Hasselblad H, the XF, the RZ. But then we get into very specific tools. So this is something that the photographic community is very passionate about, but it is a very niche market.
It is.
So just give us a little bit of.
Well, the one you see here is the Alpha Max, right? And it allows for up to 50 millimeters of shift and rise. And of course, you have the opportunity to put in also tilt shift adapters.
A tilt shift adapter on the lens.
On the lens, yeah. And in this case, you actually can move the back over the film plate rather than the other way around.
Right.
Also, the use of large format lenses, which are superior.
Well.
This is just the way it is.
Yeah.
And of course, there are some challenges with this. I mean, it's not simple photography.
No.
But when you do it right,
Right.
it's amazing.
And
what the result
it is slower.
It is absolutely slower.
And it is not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not.
Neither in investment or in usability.
Exactly. But it depends on what your target is. If you want to hit the top, this is it.
Yeah, and these are going to be used for architectural photography, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, and then
certain degree artistic landscape.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's the typical use for it.
Yeah, and it is things like this are very much a fine art or technical solution.
Yeah, and this is just one example of it. So you can keep that in mind. That there's several producers out there of this kind of equipment, and there's several type of cameras depending on what the need actually is.
Right. So we have this is the Alpha Max, and it looks very large and intimidating.
Which is it's a technical camera in that aspect.
Then you have this tiny little treat.
Yeah,
this is the Alpha TC.
Yeah.
So
it's a beautiful little kit because just how compact it is.
Right. So
actually,
with this camera,
if we take just take a back on it so you can see what it looks like with a back on it. I mean, it is tiny.
That's it.
It's beautiful. This is it.
And so that, depending on the back, is either 100 to 40 megapixels, depending on what you need, a CCD or a CMOS, depending on what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's extremely compact. And of course, yes, it doesn't allow for shift movements.
Right.
But then again, if that's not what you need, then it's ultimate, and also the fact how compact it is.
And you get the benefits of the large format lenses, which are
the quality of them. It's undisputable.
And you get the no nonsense of the actual camera body. Can you actually just take it apart and show them what the camera body consists of?
Oh, it's beautiful in that aspect. So on the back we have an adapter.
That's it.
And the adapter then comes, of course, in the kind of flavors of camera backs we have: Hasselblad H, Hasselblad V, contacts, and the Phase 1 Mamiya mount. So if you change your back and had Hasselblad H and then go to our platform and have the back in, the only thing you need to replace with is this adapter.
Yeah.
And then your camera's good. And then we have the front side, which is the front element, which is the lens with an adapter plate. This is it.
And that's just a standard large format lens on a Copal shutter.
Standard Copal shutter.
On a Alpha mount.
Yep.
And of course, it's all put together to the ultimate precision. Just closing that lock, that little
yeah,
sound,
they just
it's a swatch.
You really have to kind of have these in your hand because they're so beautifully manufactured.
But again, getting back to the versatility, you have the XF camera system with every cutting edge technological advancement it could have, and then you have this, which is nothing more than a frame that holds the large format lens, a very slow and manual operation to a digital back. And I think that that's why we really adopted this specific camera model, not that this is the exact one, but the A series is based on this.
It's based on that,
and with 3 lenses, it's a very compact kit, and that with your XF, and you have everything you can
possibly need. Yeah.
But this is a very simple version, and this is also all completely manual, no controls except for manual controls, moving everything around, cranking the shutter, a cable that needs to go from the lens to the digital back. So
it's basically just for the lens to be able to, the back to actually identify I'm taking a shot, and that's it.
But then
That's
you
why
have
it's sync.
you have other systems that actually are integrated. So this is a standard phase 1 digital back, and it's
And,
on an ALPA
FPS.
FPS.
So what the FPS is, it's an electronic camera. It has a shutter inside of it, similar to a medium format solution. And it is essentially an adapter plate in between, electronic adapter plate, we could say, because that allows you to communicate directly to the back and also communicate to the lens, meaning now you can not only use the mechanical large format lenses, but you can use phase 1 Mamiya lenses and Schneider lenses. I was about to say Carl Zeiss, but Schneider lenses. You
Also
can use
great.
Carl Zeiss lenses as well.
Yeah.
But you can also use Canon, Nikon, Leica, and so forth.
And they have some cinema lenses.
Yeah.
So you can see kind of in here, you can see the focal plane shutter.
Yeah,
And
it
where
is a
it
focal
sits.
plane shutter in between.
So again-
you see the digital interface,
Yeah.
and it has a digital interface on front. So here you choose your back interface, and then front interfaces depending on what lens it is.
So getting into medium format is not about I have to trade in all of my Nikon or my Hasselblad or my Canon lenses and get a whole new kit. This could be the bridge between the two.
Exactly.
It's a stopgap between I want to get into medium format. I have all these Canon lenses, all this Nikon glass, but
Yeah.
I could put it on a system like this.
Yeah.
Use a focal plane shutter, have complete integration.
Yeah.
And
And
there you go.
you control the lens instead from the camera body. And as I said, you have guys that are shooting, Canon for architecture, but would like to take the step up, but have all this investment in really good Canon glass.
Right.
Here you go. There's your inter report.
Yeah.
So that's your start, and then you can move on from there.
Right.
So it's a bridge gap.
Yeah.
And this is, seeing all these kind of little lens families you can use, back families. I mean, Swiss Army knife, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that what we said? And it is Swiss made. So
Yeah,
it's Swiss
pretty
Army
good.
knife for photography.
Yeah, and you still support our digital backs integrating with this camera system.
Yes.
So again, the wealth of information in the support department is extensive. I used to work there, and I know.
Yeah, you did, right?
There's a lot of manuals you got to read.
Yeah.
So all this technology and different camera systems and everything. Of course, we have the AF, the DF Plus, and our new XF. We still support the Mamiya RZ Pro 2D and
yeah.
Pro 2, and plenty of other things that fall under our umbrella. But if you could you go over a little bit about some of our other
Other
I wouldn't call them side projects.
No.
Our separate focus products.
It's not a side business. It's a part of our business, which is industrial products. Something that's grown exponentially over the last several years. The cameras you see here is from the left is the IXR,
Right.
which is it's a repro camera solution, primarily set to do art reproduction and similar things. It's a mirrorless camera.
So
Takes
very similar to the FPS we just talked about.
similar, with the difference is it takes the phase 1 mount lenses,
Right. And there's
and
no
the LS lenses.
there's no screen on here. There's no controls. There's no anything.
On the outside now,
No.
everything's controlled by the computer.
Yeah.
Put on the back, have it sitting up in a ceiling somewhere. Since there's no mirror in it, it's extremely vibration free, you could say.
And
But
I'm sure it's going to be on a sturdy tripod or something.
Indeed. And everything is controlled through live preview and etc. from the computer.
But just from a technical standpoint, I mean, this is still a camera. It's a,
Yeah,
it's,
it
a, it's
is.
a box
It
with a
is.
hole in it, and it's got a shutter.
Yeah, and it communicates with the camera back and it communicates with the lens.
And then from there we have this beast, which is
They have
very very
they have
similar,
similarities. So that's the IXA.
right?
And the IXA is similar to this. However, the back is completely integrated with the body.
Right.
Um,
Bolted to the
bolted to it and completely integrated using a common power source, which is probably electrical power from into a Lemo connector. Has a lot of connectors on the front because it's meant to be screwed into an aircraft.
right bolted into
Bolted into it.
And
yeah.
this has a focal plane shutter in it.
Just
like
you can
the other
also you can both use the focal plane shutter or you can use a leaf shutter.
Right. So that's for aerial photography.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few challenges in that.
Yeah.
And then just lastly, really quick, we have this. I don't have an example.
No,
to
we
show
don't
you, but
unfortunately have one here.
This beautiful hand shows you how small it
It's
is.
called the IXU, which is similar to the previous ones. However, it doesn't have a shutter in it. It's manufactured out of magnesium, so it weighs 800 some grams.
And this is to put on drones.
Yes, it is.
And the actual camera itself is basically just the back.
It's just the back,
with
the
a
camera
lens.
back, a tube, and then a lens. And then, of course, you have to use a leaf shutter lens because you need a
So,
shutter.
I mention all of these.
Yeah, no, I
continue
was just
on.
saying that 800 grams is kind of an important point because once you put that together with a lens, you have this kind of limit with drones, which is 1.2 kilos, which is maximum payload.
Right.
And
pretend that
it
I
will
know what a
fit
kilo
in pounds. It's times 0.2, right? So
something.
roughly
Right.
under 3 pounds and 2.5 pounds. So pan on, and it will actually fit into that limit, and that's why it's made out of magnesium itself, even though it's exponentially more expensive.
Right. So I mention all these not because you out there are gonna stop by your local Phase One dealer and purchase an aerial camera or a reproduction system or something for your Parrot drone. But I mention it just to talk about the really the evolution of medium format technology.
That's one aspect of it.
And everything that we've learned.
Yeah. That's the most important part is what we have learned from manufacturing these industrial application cameras, which is wisdom we have taken over when developing the XF camera.
Right. So the industrial build quality of all this aerial stuff kind of goes into the XF, and then we branch that into if this is all the information that we know about the camera system and the digital back, we can use that technology even as it flows over into the Hasselblad H. Perhaps vibration reduction technology, or even the Hasselblad V, and all sorts of different camera applications. So the medium format world of knowledge and modularity extends extensively.
Yeah, and I think anyone that's picked up an XF camera has kind of noticed it, because you feel it. It's not.
It's not for.
Let's say it is very industrial in its application, and it is not the plastic camera. It's a very, very, very sturdy camera.
Right. It's not good.
Exactly. So it gives you that kind of confidence in the camera.
Yeah. So if we just take a little bit of a step back and talk about the technological evolution. Again, we started this conversation with this is the focus, the Hasselblad V from the 50s, and we moved up through the Mamiya and the Contax. But just for entertainment purposes, if you could,
a little sidestep.
Could you just explain this beautiful sidestep to the viewing public?
This here is the Leaf AFI. It came around actually in 3 different versions. It came around as a Rollei H6, HY6, High 6 often called. A Sino version of it, High 6 as well, and also referred to the Leaf AFI. Essentially no difference between the different bodies except for coloring. And it was developed in conjunction with these companies back in the 2000s.
Right.
Fortunately, not a smashing success sales-wise, I think, because I think a lot of people liked the idea, but thought it was a little bit too big, and then preferred a 645 system instead.
And if you look at that, it is more similar to the V system.
Yeah. Yes. Because it is a 6x6.
Right. The chip itself.
The chip itself, in this case, is a AFI 7, which is a kind of a half smaller 33 megapixel.
Right.
It also came as a 56 and an 80 megapixel. And it had a cool thing with it where you can actually rotate the chip internally.
Right. It's just a dial on the side. Of
the exactly. Chip. So see if I can even show this to the audience. Where the chip sits landscape right now, and you can actually rotate it. So it had an internal mechanism to do this, which was like actually a really cool concept.
Yeah.
And the photographers that owned the camera loves it.
Yeah.
I've spoken to many, and you couldn't.
And you still support this today?
We still support this today. In this case, it actually has an AFI back, which is equivalent to a Leaf Aptus. And we later produced also Credo generation backs, which is a whole new generation of Leaf backs. And you know, there's a lot of people very, very passionate about this platform, and so yeah, we do still support it,
Yeah. So the
even though it's no longer produced.
it's no longer produced, but the technological options of medium format, it's at this point in the webinar, it's safe to say they're vast,
Yeah.
extensive,
Yeah.
and you as the global support manager have to have all of that information in your head, or at least at your
Right, so-
fingertips.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to just more of the technical side of medium format. Medium format digital really was born out of CCD technology,
Yeah.
and it's only until very recently that CMOS has really gotten to actual medium format. It's gotten to bigger than 35
Yeah.
2 years ago, but this year the 100 megapixel was the very first CMOS
Full frame. 645.
medium
Yes.
format.
And yeah, so it really started around 98, where we produced a 6 megapixel chip, which was 36 by 24. So it actually was a full frame 35 millimeter camera, you can say,
Right.
but sitting in a medium format body.
And I mean, what would be the advantage of having a medium format camera body, and a 35 mil chip?
Well, there's a combination of that. First of all, there's no advantage in having that chip in that. I mean, you have the advantage of the lenses and
Right.
the quality of them. But you should also take it a little bit back and looking at the time, our 35 millimeter chip was a true 16-bit chip.
Right.
While 35 millimeters cameras the same, they were not full frame. First of all,
Yeah.
and second of all, they were not 16-bit. They were struggling around 10, 12 bits.
Right.
So the color perspective between the two is massive.
And that first back was there's no screen on it. Just
No screen on it.
Firewire connection.
Firewire connection, no onboard storage. You
Right.
had to shoot tethered all the time. But at the same time, it was a massive leap because previous to that, it was scan backs.
Right.
So
Which-
essentially a linear scanner sitting over the film plane and scanning the film plane.
Right. So tabletop stuff was all you could.
Table stuff,
Yeah.
and constant light
Yeah.
sources.
But that first back that we made was the
Light phase?
and if somebody calls you today and says I have a light phase that I just bought on eBay and I need to make it work on this.
It works in Capture 1.9, the latest version.
Yeah. So
It does. I mean, the only thing you need is a Firewire card in your computer, which is getting a little bit scarce. But you can make it work in the latest version of Capture One, so we still support it, which is kind of amazing.
So versatility again and flexibility. It's still an option for anybody of any budget to get into medium format and experience it for themselves. But CCD technology really became synonymous with medium format.
Yeah.
And that's really just because of the way the technology grew. CCD was first for digital photography.
Yeah.
CMOS was not far behind, but it was really rough in the beginning, and it took a lot of iterations to really refine it.
There was a lot of struggles with the CMOS technology. There was a try to make a medium format CMOS back in, I have to remember, 2001, something like that.
Yeah, right.
And it didn't go well. Let's say it like that, because anyone that compared a CCD and CMOS version with the same resolution said no.
No.
The technology was not there yet.
Yeah.
Among other things, it's color rendition, uniformity, and to be able to produce, you were much easier to scale up the CCD technology than you were on the CMOS technology.
Right. And that's why we still produce and invest in CCD technology.
Yeah, and it has its advantages.
Mm-hmm.
Both platform has its advantages, so it's more to figure out what's best for you.
Right. Which one you need. Again, it goes back to the right tool for the right job.
Yes.
Medium format, just buying a digital back opens up an entire library of cameras that you can use it on and specific applications and the right tool for the right job.
Indeed. And that, it can be intimidating in one way because it's very easy to pick up a 35 millimeter camera and say, this is it. This is all I need.
Right.
And here you have all these endless kind of options.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a little bit confusing, but at the same time, I mean, we have fantastic value-added resellers around the world. Partners that sells our equipment every day and have a wealth of knowledge about finding the right tool for the right job for you.
Yeah.
So dialogue with a partner would be absolutely ideal.
So in generalities, we could say if if you were looking into a CCD digital back to use in whatever you wanted to, you would need to have you don't need ISO flexibility, right? That's the first thing that if you need ISO flexibility, probably not the best choice. Now we have Sensor Plus technology in CCDs, which we pioneered.
Yep, which is a technology that essentially, which our top most bags contain today. Sensor Plus, what it does is actually it will take 4 pixels put together to a super pixel. And normally what this means is someone would probably say, well, that's pixel binning. Well, typically on a pixel binning, you will lose, of course, a quarter resolution. So an 80 megapixel would be a 20 megapixel.
Right.
And you would gain 1 stop. But with our technology, we've been able to take that and make it 2 stops.
Right.
So you gain 2 stops of image quality at a quarter resolution.
So you have some ISO flexibility, but you sacrifice resolution for ISO flexibility. So, landscape photographers, where they have a tripod, they're out in the field, they can do a slower shutter speed. They, aren't worried about cranking the ISOs. CCD's the perfect fit.
Yep.
And again, it fits on, any one of these cameras. If you want this for your landscape photography, or if you want to, put this in a backpack and knock it out to the middle of nowhere, which God bless you if you do. But it's, it's the right tool for the right job. CCD is gonna work on anything. And then we get into, CMOS, which again is relatively new.
Relatively new.
Each technology has its.
I mean, it does have some advantages when it comes to high ISO flexibility.
Yeah.
Which is, you can go far and further up in ISO before you degrade quality.
Right. And up until the 100 megapixel, CMOS was in the medium format realm, but it was not 16-bit. It was 14-bit.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
There's no medium format camera system that existed in 16-bit until the 100.
The 100 megapixel was the first one to actually do provide a full 16-bit.
Right. On the chip, 16-bit
on the
color.
chip, which is what our customer are used to in terms of come to color rendition. Should also mention another advantage is, of course, live preview.
Yeah.
Full 24 frames a second live preview out of the back, either on the computer through USB or HDMI directly connected to a screen, external screen. And that is things we cannot do on a CCD technology. Yes, we can do live preview, but
it requires you stop down, put some ND filters in there. It's not
for
exactly
best resolution, yes, and you get, depending on what the resolution back it is, it can be 2, 3, 4 frames a second rather than 24 frames a second.
And you bring up resolution. With medium format CMOS, we have 2 flavors. We have the 50 megapixel, which isn't full frame, and it is 14-bit.
And 1.3 lens conversion factor.
Right. And then we have the 100 megapixel, which is full frame.
Which is full frame.
The 1.0
lens conversion factor.
You tech. The 100 megapixel, in a 645 frame brings up its own challenges. So, one of them would be the just because of the compactness of the resolution, angle of incidence becomes a problem. So if you could explain a little bit about what that is.
On the medium format, you will not have this problem, of course, because you have fixed lenses and that's all good.
Right.
Once we go over on large format, though,
right.
We mentioned previously the Alpha Max. Here comes the challenge because you have diffraction of the lens, you have of course coverage, and then you have most important of all, angle of light.
Right. And that's the angle in which the light from the lens is hitting the chip.
Exactly.
Right.
So
medium format is.
Yeah, it's pretty much straight on, and you can see you have a box in between.
Right.
But when you have the lens smacked up against the sensor,
like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then it becomes more critical. What happens then is with the resolution is that you can get a phenomenon where you get the spectral response. Basically, the spectra is spreading itself from pixel well to pixel well.
Right, which means one,
get the green and the next one get the red.
Yeah, so the light splits and then, one pixel well gets one frequency of light and the other one gets the other.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then you'll get color cast.
Color cast is the typical one. And also, because of the pixel wells are smaller, you have the angle of light, which means that your light fall off becomes quicker.
Yeah.
Because it's more sensitive to angle of light, and at a certain point, it can't even fit into the pixel well, and instead angle of light is too steep and bounces off.
So
and that's, so with the more resolution, the more sensitive it becomes for that.
And that goes back again to keep harping on this, the right tool for the right job.
Yeah.
And medium format gives you a ton of tools to make sure that you're making the right decision for what you need.
Exactly. So
and if we could just on the 100 megapixel itself, because we work so close with Sony, and because we certainly do our fair share of testing and refining here.
Yeah.
The 100 megapixel we've tested at 8mm shift, and we can make it work beautifully. Beyond that, we start to have some issues, which we can solve in
depending on the lens.
Depending on the lens, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But then we can start solving those digitally in Capture One.
Certain phenomena we can correct, but at a certain point it becomes also a physical limitation. So some of the image quirkiness we can fix, but once it becomes, you get so much fall off that it's black, you can't do anything because there's no data to work with.
Right.
So again, right tool for the right job, and there I recommend again working together with a partner, because our partners know this kind of, if you have gear and are thinking about it, test it.
Yeah.
Figure out, test it and see, is this for me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So technology aside, there are some aesthetics to medium format that are quite different. So, a lot of people that shoot 35mm and love shooting 35mm always ask, why, if I don't need the resolution, why do I need medium format? Aside from the versatility, the modularity, the color depth that you can get, and then of course there's always the resolution. But there is a medium format aesthetic. So there's two basic principles that I've outlined here. There's depth of field and depth of detail, which are intertwined. And if you could just discuss a little bit about each one.
Well, depth of field is a little quirky subject, which we experience all the time. And probably someone will discuss what I'm saying now later on. But depth of field is always consistent, no matter what.
Yeah.
It's always the same. But the fact is, your perception of sharpness changes
because of
resolution.
Yeah.
So a lens have always the same depth of field. So those are the kind of things. It's kind of two things that struggle towards the one, and then you say my perception of sharpness is what says sharp, and sharp, that would be depth of field.
Right.
So it's a circular argument.
Right, but it also comes back with depth of field. You do have a bigger chip.
Yeah.
You do have the apertures are going to be different depending on that chip. And if your distance to the subject is the same as say a 35mm, you will have shallower depth of field.
Yeah.
Because you are equivocally different in terms of size.
And the calculation becomes completely different.
And the calculation, if anyone's interested, Wikipedia.
No, but definitely it is. And also, because your lens size is different, the amount of light lets in is different. And so on.
And just to put some of it's really hard to give the aesthetic a definition, but I pulled a few examples. So this one is a product shot of this guy out in what looks like Iceland or something. But the way that the bokeh and the softness of the rocks while he's still in tack sharp focus, that's something that really rolls off. And again, it comes back to that depth of detail.
Yeah.
It would seem to roll off much faster with a lower resolution system, or the distance to the subject would need to be much closer in order to see the same kind of depth. So it gives you a bit more flexibility. And I also have this portrait, which shows about the same. This is a shot with a 110mm, so equivalent to about a 85, I think, in 35mm.
Roughly right.
So it's something that you certainly would use for portrait. And you have this, crisp eye, which is, of course, your focal point, and then you have this beautiful soft fall off and all the detail in through the hair.
Yeah.
So there's always, those advantages depending on what you need. And that aesthetic is incredibly hard to quantify and put into words, but it is very much there. And those that shoot with medium formats know it well. And then we get into just the detail.
Details.
So this is, an incredibly detailed shot inside of a church. This was actually shot with a 23 millimeter Rodenstock lens, and an Alpha TC. So no shift, no movements, very compact, which is, if you're not allowed to be shooting inside of a church, I imagine that's what you want.
But you can get away with it pretty easy.
But to be able to, stand in the middle of a church, get all of the detail all around everything, and still get the eyes of this angel in the back of the church. That's something that medium format offers that can't be said about much else. And lastly, I wanted to put this example up here. This is just one of my favorite photographers, Gregory Crutzen.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the medium format aesthetic, the versatility of medium format, the modularity of medium format, his work and really these images kind of encompass all of that. He does still shoot film, of course, because he is a fine artist, but he does, I'm very happy to say, shoot medium format with a Phase 1 digital back, and he shoots with an Alpha Cambo. I'm sorry, Cambo WRS,
probably,
and he also shoots large format. So his style, if you really want to do a little bit of research about the aesthetic of medium format, I would urge everyone to look up Gregory Crutzen. These are all beautiful images, of course, painstakingly composed as if it were a big film production. But the depth of detail in all of his images, the depth of field aesthetic that he gets by either putting a tilt or shift on his WRS or his large format 8x10 camera. These are all things that you can get still to this day with digital medium format camera system. So, his work for me personally, I won't speak for everybody, but that really does encompass what medium format embraces: the ability to have modular options, versatility, the right tool for the right job. And then what I appreciate, because I still shoot film, is that I can have a camera system where I can go out, I can shoot to my heart's content with digital. Of course, I borrow the camera system from Phase 1, but know that I've got the shot and I'm comfortable with it, but then put on a film back and still, take a shot with film and keep that fine art edge that I love so much.
It's good stuff.
So we kind of hit the mark, 45 minutes. Not bad. We've got some time for questions, Q&A, and really, I would like to keep the topic of medium format, but you do have Ulf's ear, so the global support manager. I'm sure he can answer pretty much anything you throw at him. It might be a good challenge, actually. If there's something that stumps him, we'll give you a free Capture One Pro key.
Yes.
So we have David here in the room moderating us and making sure that we are technically sound. So he's going to just give us a few of the questions that you guys had.
Any compatibility for the RB67?
Absolutely.
Of course.
The question was if the compatibility for RB67.
Not RZ, RB.
RB.
Yep.
There's two options. There is an adapter for RB, so you can actually put a Hasselblad V-mounted back straight onto the RB with an adapter plate.
And then that would just require a cable to go from lens to digital back?
Yep, that's it. Lens from the back, just to so it actually get the information what the capture is.
When the capture is complete.
Capture complete. Yep. There's another option too, which I think is better, and that's the RZ. And you're asking what? This is the RZ Pro 267 adapter plate. This one has an RB mode, and that is for RB lenses. So it's actually here on the side, where it actually says RBL, so people can see that. Anyway, so that's to take an RB lens on this body, and it works just fine, and that's an option too. So both of them is different options.
Yeah.
The downside is the RB will of course take the V mount because it's a mechanical interface. The RB has no electronics whatsoever. But then you'd only have compatibility here. If you later want to go here,
What I
There's
would
a
like
different
to mention in that is the RB is the cheapest of the options for these camera systems. So if you want to get into medium format, you can pick one
Yeah.
up for, $500, $600 bucks.
Yeah, I'm just wanted to say that there's several options.
Yeah. But again, all of them are supported. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
If you call up support tomorrow and say, I just got this digital back, I want to put it on my RB. Help.
And then I would say get this and this and that.
Yeah.
And it will work.
What else you got, David?
Tom was asking, was the Pentax 645 not an important MF camera? But I guess it died off because of the lack of modularity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question was around the Pentax 645 camera, and it used inserts rather than cassettes.
Yeah, and that in the beginning of this, I talked a little bit about the medium format camera system that was modular is really the one that survived. There are still medium format camera systems today that are not modular. There's digital medium format camera systems that are not modular, but that really adopts a technology growth that's unsustainable and really not true to the nature of photography, I think. It's the 35 millimeter model. If I buy a camera, I get that technology, and then 6 months later, there's a new technology. I don't have the option to integrate it. I have to sell that camera, throw it out, buy the new one. So it's this constant cycle of investment. And I think what's great about medium format, of course, I'm biased since Phase One pays my bills, but that modularity does allow you to buy the one system, buy the one digital component, and keep it growing throughout the cycles of cameras. And of course, we always we love our customers, so there's always, if you want the newest technology, cash in your digital back, and we'll give you a good deal to get the newest one. So the non-integrated medium format is pretty much as advanced as this beast. It's something that you can't grow on. It is what it is. Of course, I love this camera. I use this camera, but it's not something that you can advance in. The greatest thing I can do with that is buy higher speed film.
Can you confirm the name of the Alpha next to the Mac?
The Alpha next to the Mac. Yeah. So the question was, what is this Alpha? This is the Alpha TC. The Alpha TC, when you get it from the lovely people at Alpha, is this frame without the handle, without the dovetail, and then you have to put on the right adapter for your digital back. Then you have to research and invest which lens you want to get for the actual camera system, and if you want any accessories like a grip. Of course, we do have the A series, the Phase One A series, which is our alliance with Alpha, and it is an Alpha TC with a rosewood grip. You can get it with 3 flavors of lens: the 20, 23, 35, and the 70. 70.
70. Okay.
So those 3 lenses, and then the digital back is actually calibrated to whichever lenses you buy. It has those calibrations for the lenses in the digital back, so everything's integrated. So that was more information than you needed, but I hope I helped. What else you got, David?
Martin was asking about the longevity of medium format sensors. Do they degrade over time if you shoot video, use live view? How does it compare to DSLRs?
Well,
sensor technology, it's just DSLRs, any sensors.
There's a half-life to silicone, which is a few thousand years.
Yeah, and exactly. There is now, we did some tests way back on some cameras been sitting in aircraft shooting millions of captures. There's a theoretical degradation of sensors, which means that they can lose sensitivity over time. But those tests we did back in the days, the sensor, the ISO degradation was too low to detect.
And that was over millions of captures.
Yeah. So then we're talking about, maybe the degradation was far into the decimals of an ISO number.
Right.
So now I see sometimes also that people are like, how many shots is on the digital back? It is completely irrelevant.
Right.
To be honest, it's the sensor has.
So buying a digital back on the secondhand market or a pre-owned one from us, if you're worried about shot count, it's clearly not something that you need to worry about.
And the digital back doesn't have any moving parts
aside from the CF card ejection button.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
With the
Okay.
people.
Yeah. Absolutely. The safeguard ejection button has mechanical movement. But that's about it. But the sensor itself does not. And people shouldn't be worried unless it's in the billions of captures, I think.
Have you
and-
seen a
and-
digital back with billions of captures?
No, I haven't, but I've seen very high millions of
Several millions.
several millions.
All right.
And as I said, no noticeable degradation.
And I think, just to really drive home that point, the aerial photography, again, we're making tools specific for aerial photography.
Yeah.
These guys are doing, 10,000 shots in a run. So it's not exactly.
Yeah, that's a low run, though.
Yeah, so it's not exactly like they're worried about shot count. So
No.
if they're using the camera system for years upon years,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody else needs to stress about it.
No.
Again, more information than you needed, but
Yeah.
you've got the right guy to answer it. David, you got another question for us?
Yep, I do. Tricky one.
Oh, this will be a good one.
I'm not quite sure of the context, so you might have to.
All right, we might have
Frame
to
it.
rein in the question.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
Andrea was asking, if depth of field remains the same, then it's all about focus contrast, right? Question mark.
You could say that.
I'm not
Between-
sure if Andrea means between 35mm and medium format. I'm not sure. Maybe you can elaborate. It was Andrea Ricci.
No, but I'm trying to understand it. And I think we're back into a circular argument again about perception of sharpness. That's
What
one
is
thing.
sharp?
What is sharp and what isn't sharp?
Is this a philosophical question? And it's going to be answered by a tech guy?
Yeah, that's probably the worst part. Right? Now, I think it is, and again, we are back in a circular argument regarding, what is sharp, your perception of sharpness versus what is depth of field.
All right.
And it decreases, but if you want to have static formulas for it, we're not going to provide that today.
No?
No, I don't
Next
think
time
so.
we'll have a whiteboard.
Yeah, exactly. Because now that changes. But there's no, of course, there's difference between 35mm and medium format, no doubt about that.
No.
And second of all, also is another thing that comes into the argument then is, of course, the what your lens can resolve.
Yeah.
That comes into play as well.
Which,
And all of a sudden,
if we can take that topic to run back to what we talked about, we mentioned that the large format lenses are, the best lenses that you're going to get.
yeah,
It's
but
because
again, but there's also large format lenses has the same thing. There's film lenses, there's digital lenses, and then we have the HR lenses, high resolution lenses. So they kind of have overall kind of 3 generations of lenses. On our side, we can say, our dear partner Mamiya in Japan, they produced lenses back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and stuff like that, which are film lenses. And then later we came out with the D lens range, which is D for digital, of course, which has higher tolerance and higher resolution. And now, conjoined with Schneider, we have come up with a even new lens range, which has even higher resolution.
Because we got that 100 megapixel back, man. We got to.
Yeah. And I think the slogan was 100 megapixel and beyond.
Yeah. What does that mean?
But no, that doesn't mean anything. But I think anyone can figure out is that, as soon as we have released something, we work on something else. And that does not only apply to us, that applies to every company in the 35mm industry, Micro Four Thirds, etc.
Yeah.
Everyone is working on something new. So
we really derailed this question.
yeah, we did.
Sorry. You got another one, David?
Nope, that's it for questions.
All right. Well, that brings us right about to the hour, which is perfect. There is a poll. Basically, we just like to do more of these hardware webinars for you because we enjoy doing them so much. If I could find my mouse, there we go.
Yep.
So if you could just let us know, what you thought of today's webinar, and then there's also, what would you like to see in the hardware webinars in the future? there's a wealth of information under the roof of this building, and a lot of people that are really passionate about the products that we make and photography in general. So if there's a specific topic that we can cover, either with Ulf or with somebody from R&D or with our image professor Nils, or maybe even Henrik Håkansson, if we can wrangle him in from his busy schedule. Really, we are at your disposal, and we really appreciate you coming, and we hope that you learned something today. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
And if you could, fill out that poll, that would be really helpful for us. Again, hope to see you soon, and have a great day.